Hi, my name is Sarah and this is Elizabeth.
Hi.
And Lucas.
Good morning.
Today we have a very special guest. We are very lucky to have the Mayor of Prospect. Please welcome Mr. David O'Loughlin.
It's great to be with you all.
Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Beautiful day, lovely rain outside. Hasn't it been so dry?
It has. What do you think of our setup?
I think it's amazing. I can't believe you've got such a great studio in here. You've got a green wall, you've got cameras galore, microphones. This is a better setup than the Italian radio that I visit every now and again. You're doing very well here, right in the heart of Prospect.
Thank you.
How did you become mayor and what does your job entail?
Oh, there's big questions. I'll give you the quick answer. I lived just in Arthur Street, right next to the school here at number 18. And a few neighbours were very upset about the amount of money they were paying in their local taxes. And they're very upset about what they were getting for it. So I said, why don't you run for council and tell them what you think? And they said, we're too scared to do that. I said, well, I'll do it. I'll run for council. So I did, and we got the rates down and we got better outputs. And then next term I ran for mayor. So the first time as a councillor for this ward, and then for mayor 3.5 years later. And now I've been mayor for over 14 years. So lots of changes happened in that time. In terms of the job, there's many things involved in being a mayor. There's an act of parliament that describes what I have to do. I have to chair the meetings of the council, which happen at least once a month. I have to be the principal spokesperson for the council, which means that whenever something has to be said, then I'm the person that has to say it. And I also have to preside over other elements and be the communication outlet for the council. So there are those activities, but there's many, many more things that I do. Citizenship ceremonies, we spoke about before. Presiding over many local clubs and sporting groups that want to hear from council. Talking to investors who wish to invest in council. Talking to lots of constituents who have problems with their parking or their trees or their dogs or their fences or their building or their next door neighbour or whatever it might be, to make sure that they have a set of ears that can listen to them, and also that I can go and help sort out their problems for them. Many, many things like that.
What is the achievement you're most proud of as mayor?
I would have to say it would be the upgrade of Churchill Road. Now, you're too young to remember what it was like even only 12 years ago. It was a horrible road. You wouldn't want to live there. You wouldn't want to drive along there. People called it the road to the dump. Horrible. And it was because it had been neglected by the state government, who own the road, and by council, who own all the gardens and footpaths either side of the road. So I set about to say there's enough of that. I met with the minister when I became mayor and said, are you going to fix this? And he said, no. I said, good, get out of the way, we'll fix it. And if you ever come and make the road even wider, then you pay to redo all our good work. He said, that sounds like a fair deal to me. So we started with stage 1, which was in the centre, then we did stage 2, which was down the south, and now we're just finishing stage 3, which is up this end, and finishes just where Hungry Jack's is, just near Bunnings on Churchill Road. And that upgrade has beautified Churchill Road. People are much happier living there, and then we set off an investment cycle. So you can see some small apartment buildings and townhouses down there. All of that's happened in the last 10 years. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that's a big change. How do the decisions made by the council impact our school?
Well, it depends on the decision. So if we're making a decision around the speed limits across the whole city to make it 40 kilometres an hour in every street, that will make it safer for people going to the school. So if you want to cross the road, the cars coming along the road will be travelling that little bit slower. If we're making a decision around the rates that people pay to fund all the activities that we run, all the road maintenance that we do, that doesn't affect the school at all, because under the state law, you're exempt from paying any local taxes to us, which we don't like. But anyway, we're happy to help. So it does depend on the decision. Some of them are directly impacting schools, some indirectly, such as building the new Baindi Library, which I hope you visited. It's a fantastic place.
In Prospect?
Yes, on Prospect Road, yep. So that impacts the students who want to go and visit that, and other decisions have no impact at all.
Are there any issues that you think we should know about or be involved with as a school community?
Yes, and you've got a really good track record, Lucas, in that, because you've participated in the War on Waste competition. This school won the national competition as the best school and the war on waste. It was fantastic for me to hear about that, and we had Craig Rucastle, who was the host of that show, come over to present the award. He also came and appeared at a workshop that we'd established, and some students from this school and other schools came along. That war on waste is really important for our resources and for our environment, and we all need to do a much better job, and this school has showed the way. And hopefully you've gone home and showed your parents how to do it, and your uncles and aunties and all of your friends. So your work here has had a profound impact on our efficiency in recycling in particular.
How did COVID affect the way you worked either as a council or in your own role as a mayor?
COVID-19? Yes, it has affected it. We had to shut down the library for months. We were very unhappy about it. But the staff were very unsure about whether the disease could be transmitted through library books being lent to people. That had to be settled down, worked out that that wasn't really a big risk. If you let them sit there for 7 days, they were going to be okay. But shutting the library meant there was no interface between people, and that lessened the risk. But what we were able to do was deliver books to people who were really lonely, who used to come to the library to get books to read, to keep them in touch. We were able to take the books in a nice bag and put them on their front veranda and ring the doorbell, and they'd come out and grab the books very safely. And that was a great program. We also looked at our cafes and restaurants and said, look, they're going to really suffer because no one's going out for dinner. They might go broke. We might not have any restaurants at the end of this. So we set up a program so that we delivered meal vouchers to vulnerable people in our community, particularly older people, and they could take that voucher to a restaurant and exchange it for a meal. And that meal would be free to that person, and then the restaurant would bring the voucher into council the next day and we would pay them cash for that. So they had money coming in and they had terrific people in the community getting well fed who otherwise would be missing out too. We did lots of things like that. And there's much more we did too. Fortunately now we're pretty much all back to normal.
We're a very lucky country. How does the council help out schools in the area?
Well, we don't have direct involvement with schools because you're run by the Education Department, which is the state government, and the private schools are run by themselves or by other systems. But what we do get involved in is making sure that the footpaths around the schools are in good order and nice and safe for people to come and go to the school and get in and out of cars. We have a lot to do with the planning and the parking controls around the schools to make sure that there's space for people to drive up and pick up you from school or to drop you off in the morning safely. And we have a lot to do with the condition of the roads and the footpaths to make sure that they're safe and not full of holes and no one's going to get hurt driving along or walking along the footpaths. So there are some immediate impacts, and we're also involved in the planning system so that we like to make sure we control what can get built on school sites or next to school sites to make sure that those things are done harmoniously.
We noticed that you're on a large amount of committees. Do you ever get any downtime?
Not really. That's a great question. We did just take a week and a half with my wife Alison. We went to Kangaroo Island for a week, which was just beautiful. All the bushland there regenerating after the big fires they had last January is amazing. And a few days before that we were in Sydney to see the musical Hamilton. Not sure if you've heard about that. That's a big deal, that musical. And that was really terrific. So we did take a week and a half off, which meant I had to not be at any of my committee meetings. Although I did find on my very first day in Sydney, I had to dial into a committee meeting on Zoom at 8 o'clock in the morning, which was not a good way to start a holiday, but you can still participate whilst travelling, but I prefer to really stop everything when I go away. But it is hard to get downtime as a mayor.
Slightly off topic. Are you a North Adelaide fan in the footy, and are you a Crows or Port?
Well, the Roosters, they're our local team, so I'm a big supporter of the Roosters. But my origins are in a place called Port Pirie. Port Pirie has 4 teams, and my father and my grandfather and my uncles and my brother were heavily involved in a football club called the Port Pirie Football Club, or Ports. So when I came to Adelaide, I barracked for Ports, which is Port Adelaide. But the Roosters are based here, so I'm a very big supporter of them. Now, can you imagine who I barrack for in the AFL? Port Adelaide, right? Because it sounds like Port Pirie. So I'm a big fan of the Power.
If you weren't in your position today, what career path do you think you would have chosen, or was it always working in the public sector?
No, my origins are in building and construction and design and project management. My grandfather started a building company in Port Pirie in 1948, and my father took it over, and we made bricks and kitchen cupboards and timber doors and wall frames and built houses and factories and shops and big industrial facilities. That's my background, and I've been in the private construction market for decades. I ran for council alongside that work, so I was working full-time in construction and part-time as a mayor. Those were very busy years. You talk about downtime, boy, that was busy. And on top of all of that, my house here in Arthur Street near the school, we did a huge renovation out the back of it, a 2-storey addition, and I had to do that on the weekends in between being in the construction industry. So it's been a very busy few years for me, but local government was not where I started. Construction and development, that's my profession.
Where is your family name from, and can you tell us about your family history?
I can tell you a little bit because it's a long story, and your families would also have a long story as well. So my family name O'Loughlin, that's of course only on my father's side. And if you go back through generations, there are mother's stories as well, and grandfather's stories and grandmother's stories on both sides, and so on and so forth. But if we just stay with the surname of O'Loughlin, my grandfather, as I said, was from Port Pirie. His father was from a little place called Tarawi, where they raised horses. And horses were, of course, like motor cars nowadays, so that was a very useful occupation. His father, my great-great-grandfather, had a farm at a place called Kaltowie, north of Jamestown in the mid-north. They had 12 children, and he and his wife, Anne, and they met. His name was Cornelius. That's a great name, isn't it? Cornelius and Anne met and fell in love here in Adelaide way back when they first came over in 1848. So 12 years after South Australia was settled and proclaimed as a colony, they moved here separately, met here. And what's even more interesting is that Anne's mother came with them. So I go to Kaltowie Cemetery and I can see the grave of my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-grandmother, and my great-great-great-grandmother, and Barry's mother. The name O'Loughlin comes from Ireland on the west coast in a place called County Clare, more specifically in the Burren, which is an area that's quite rocky and characterised by wildflowers poking up from between the rocks, and there's some farmland. O apostrophe at the start of my name means son of. So O'Loughlin means son of Lachlan, and we're related to the O'Briens. There were 2 sons going back away 900 years ago, two sons called Lachlan and Brian, and their families were called O'Loughlin and O'Brien. That's a very long time ago, and they had very small castles in their family. Really, they were defensive buildings made of stone rather than timber. And they were tall, skinny towers. Very interesting. So the name goes back a long way, but that's just one of the names in my family, and I'm sure there are many names in your family too.
What advice would you give to students here at our school?
Well, this is a great school. I came here many years ago, 1975, not for very long, and it's so good to see the school thriving. The new buildings were built here when I was on council. I was very happy to support the State Minister at the time, Jane Lomax-Smith, and her and I pushed very hard for the school to get more money and more facilities. And now the school is doing incredibly well with enrolments and great kids like yourselves, fantastic facilities like this one we're sitting in right now, and for you to be able to not just do great work as students in the education system, but also, as I mentioned, win that War on Waste competition and other national and state competitions that you're involved in. It really does make me very proud as a local mayor to see one of the schools in my city doing so well. So my advice is keep up the great work. What you do here will be really important for what happens next year in your life. And next year is just the first of what I hope will be many successful years for you, each of you, going forward.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Mr. Mayor. We know how busy you are, and to take some time out of your day to chat with us means the world. PNC Podcast out.
Thank you.